Good evening, everybody. Welcome again to Baumhauer's Victory Grill. Welcome to another edition of the Nick Saban Show. I am Eli Gold. Our special media guest here at the restaurant is Cecil Hurt from the Tuscaloosa News. And joining us from his home here in Tuscaloosa, head coach Nick Saban. Coach, how are you, sir? Good evening.
Doing great. How y'all doing?
We are well. Congrats on the win on Saturday.
Oh, good. I appreciate that. Thank you. Cecil, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm masked up today, so.
He is masked up and he has a microphone so we can all hear what he has to say.
I'm glad to see Kristen fixed your background behind you. And it's neat and orderly.
Been like that for, 13 years, whatever was back there, but I kind of got chewed out about what my background looked like. And I said, well, if you want to do something about it, fix it. So it got fixed.
Indeed, you did. Yeah. Listen, let me start before we get to football. There's something that transpired today that I know made you very, very proud. They announced the semifinalists for the William Campbell Trophy, which goes to the scholar athlete in all of college football. That award was won by Barrett Jones a few years ago, and Landon Dickerson was named one of the semifinalists today. A wonderful honor for him.
Well, I don't think there's any question about it. I think if you're really a college football fan, and I know how much people get excited about the Heisman Trophy and who wins the Doak Walker and all these, performance-based type awards, which are great to reinforce, players' positive performance. But I think this Campbell Award, I knew Billy Campbell. He was a good guy and a good coach before he got in the business world. But what it represents, the character, the academics, the overall achievement that somebody has, this is, in my mind, one of the most prestigious awards that anyone can, be honored with. And, for one of our players, I was so proud of Barrett Jones when he won. Now for Landon to get in the semifinalist, it's really, really fantastic for him and his family.
Todd, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, so I'm curious about something, Coach. And you mentioned that you guys are testing every day and that your players feel safe about that. And obviously, that development was a big reason that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 now today have made a decision to kind of get back into playing because they have the wherewithal to do that. Do you know, are there other teams in the SEC that are doing that right now, or are you guys the only ones that are testing every day that you know of?
Well, a few days ago, I think we were the only ones that I knew of that was doing that. If other people have started that, I really not aware of it, so I really don't know.
Yeah,
we were testing 3 days a week,
right?
4, and most people were testing 2.
Okay.
And then we just said, hey, let's just test every day. It'll be a little better.
It's interesting to me too, Coach. And I grew up the son of a coach, and coaches have lots of cliches or sayings that they like to cling to, and one of them is always trying to get your team to believe in that next man up mentality. Whether it's with injuries, and it seems like this year that's even more the case because you have injuries still, but you also have in some places guys that have opted out for this season. You have guys that don't pass a test, so they can't make the trip. Tulsa had to leave a couple people behind. Clemson had to leave a couple of their main corners behind the first week. They don't know for sure if it was COVID or not, but you assume so. And so it seems like this year, even more than maybe any other year, that idea of guys being ready to step up and play and be accountable is even more important.
And I think that is very, very true. I think the more depth you have on the team, the more guys that you have that can win and play winning football. But I also think that, when you have young players, I think it's very difficult for some of them to realize the importance of learning how to prepare for a game when they don't know for sure if they're going to play. I think that's one of the, especially guys that are high profile guys, they were star players in high school. All right, and now all of a sudden you're expecting me to go out here and really prepare to play in this game, but yet I might not get to play. But it's so important this year that they understand that, because they're one practice away. You always say one play away from playing, but they could be one practice away. I mean, when we posted our travel squad, tonight, we had to put a supplemental list together of you guys have to be on call, because if anybody has a positive test tomorrow, you have to be ready to take their place. All right. So it really runs deep in the roster. And where it really is important and impactful is on special teams.
Right.
And, somebody asked me the question yesterday on the SEC conference call that they've seen a lot of sloppy play on special teams or something. And I can understand why, because, all this stuff kind of rolls down the hill. All right. So if you move guys up as starters, you move the next guy in on special teams, then maybe those units get affected as much as anything.
Coach, Andy Staples, of course, one of the best sports writers out there. Andy, feel free to jump in with a question for the coach.
Well, I got to ask you this, because you've never struck me as the kind of person who would enjoy being stuck at home. How are you handling that aspect of it, where you're not supposed to leave?
I had a meeting with the leadership group today, and I told them, I said, it's really been tough for me. I said, I'm getting beat up on both ends. I said, when I come there, I can raise hell with you guys. And now I'm here with Miss Terry, and she's raising hell with me. So I'm losing out on both ends. But anyway,
as somebody who's worked out of the house for about 20 years, welcome to my world. When you're working from home, nobody realizes you're still actually working.
Yeah, but you know what? It's a really different mindset when you work at home, and I sort of probably could use some coaching pointers from you relative to that, because it seems like, when you get in your car and you go to work, your mindset is I'm going to do this, 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 and this all day today, and you all got it kind of mapped out. And when you stay at home, it's like, I'm supposed to be doing some of the stuff I do at home. So I haven't done anything that I normally would do at home. So you just got to get it. You got to train yourself to be able to stay focused on what you're doing. It's a lot more difficult to me when you're at home than it is when you go to work.
You got to be really disciplined.
There are more distractions.
We're really disciplined. Yeah, I get that.
Definitely.
We need to get you one of the doors, the remote control doors for your office at home, though.
I'm not that lucky.
I hear you. I found it interesting, Coach, and we can expound a bit, and then I want to shift over to the Georgia game. But I found it interesting to hear you say that you were able to see so much more on an all 22 camera that you had access to, as opposed to just standing with the DBs or whatever you're doing. I found it interesting that you were able to take in more of the practice than you would have normally as it was happening.
Well, it is when you get the view from 1,000 feet, which is kind of, we've got these towers and they're shooting the thing, and it's like watching game film. But when you're actually watching practice, you can't say, hey, run that back again, like you can when you're watching a film. So you only see certain things, and you watch certain parts of certain things, and that's how we kind of split up as coaches. So we have eyes on everything. Like I usually coach the front side of the defense, and the other coaches are on the back side of the defense. And, the linebacker coach is coaching the middle of the defense. So, but when you got the big picture, you can kind of see a lot more. And you see a lot more because you're seeing the big picture rather than specific things. So it was a little interesting. And I guess that's why Coach Brian always stood up in that tower.
Yeah, definitely. You are young enough to generate another birthday cake this week.
Wow, that looks good.
It's a beautiful cake that is being shown to the coach here.
It sure is.
It says, "Happy birthday, Coach Saban, COVID 2020, and the picture of you behind your podium at the press conference. You've got the bottle of Coke, and even on the cake, you're wearing a mask.
Yeah, but they had me smiling at the press conference, which is really
That's
kind of
obviously
unusual.
Yeah, but no, that's, but that is really nice, and and you've got your birthday coming up on Saturday. And as a matter of fact, we have another question that leads us in. Ladies, thank you so much. And
Thank you so much.
that's
I
very
appreciate
nice
that.
of you.
Very thoughtful.
Unfortunately, with the COVID and all, we can't put all the candles on it and bring it up here. Somebody asked on the Nick Saban Show blog, Cindy down in Daphne, since you'll be playing Mississippi State on your birthday, any particular birthday memories, ball games or otherwise, that brings back a smile to you? Thanks, Coach, and Roll Tide. There's a smile right there.
I don't really remember many on my birthday. I think for about the last 12 years, my birthday has been when we had a bye week.
Yeah, it's been the bye week, right?
And I can't even remember past 12 years. But one of the, I guess in the NFL, when you play on Thanksgiving, it's such a big thing. And one of my memories of the first thing that came to mind when you said holiday is we played Dallas when they had just won the Super Bowl when I was in Cleveland with Bill. And we actually beat them in Dallas on Thanksgiving. And I always remember that game because it came down to the last play. Novacek caught a pass on Eric Turner, hit him on the 2-yard line, and the clock ran out. So I always remember that game. I just...
Yeah. Roman Harper, how about you? Did you guys ever play in Dallas or in Detroit on Thanksgiving?
Yes, we did. Played in Dallas a couple times and actually ended up beating them. It didn't come down to the last second like coaches, but it's just funny to hear when you win in the NFL, every win feels like a Super Bowl sometimes or a playoff win. It's just, you're just so jubilated because it takes so much
to win.
That
so hard to win.
The week of the grind is so much you put into it. By the time you win a game on Sunday, you're just elated and you start the rat race right back over. And, but wins come, but it takes so much to win on any given Sunday. Everybody knows it's just so hard.
Yeah.
And anybody can beat anybody. I guess I have one other memory. We actually played in L.A. on Christmas.
Really?
Yeah.
In L.A. And I was coaching in Cleveland. And my kids were little. And I'm sitting on Christmas Eve in the hotel all by myself. And, it's Christmas.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's not right. What's wrong with this?
What am I doing here?
And there's a Santa Claus in the lobby of the hotel wearing shorts or something. Yeah.
And your kids are like 3,000 miles away.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
That's the business we're in, though.
That's the business.
That is the business we're in. Roman, why don't you throw another question at the coach?
Yeah, so Coach, just listening to you, just knowing you over the years, the one thing I always appreciate about you is that you never miss an opportunity to teach, and that's what the best coaches are. They're great teachers, and they just know how to get it across to the person that they're talking to. And I just want to know, where did you pick that up from? When you were the same type of player, were you doing the same thing, taking the opportunity to teach or help others out when you were a player of football as well, and not just a coach?
Well, I think that, my high school coach actually used to teach us things all the time. And he would teach us things that even as we were playing, they were lessons of life.
Right.
Like, you probably heard this story before, but when I was a sophomore quarterback, we were playing the last game of the season. We were 8-1, and we had to win this game to get in the playoffs. And we get behind 18-0. We get it back to 18-12. We go 2 minutes at the end of the game. I was 15 years old, and I called the plays. So it came to 4th down and 11 on the 25-yard line, and he called the last time out. And I said, thank God he's going to call this play. I don't have to call this play. So I go over to the sidelines and say, Coach, what do you think we should do? And he said, well, what do you think? And I said, I think you should call this play. That's what I think. and he said, look, I don't care what play you call. He said, you got the fastest guy in the state playing left halfback. You got a 3-time All-State split end. Just make sure one of the two of them get the ball. So I called 26 crossfire pass, faked it to the left halfback, threw it ex-post corner, and we won the game. But he said, don't think of plays, think of players. I mean, most people don't learn that until they get in the NFL.
Bravo, Coach. Thank you. It is a player-driven league. It's a player-driven game. The best coaches have the best players, and you just learn how to put them in position to do what they do, which is
That's
play.
right.
Yeah.
And
So
don't try to lock them up like robots.
But to answer your question, I guess, my college coach, Don James, was the same way. He was always teaching us, always teaching us. Our coaches were always teaching us. And I think that when I was a young coach, I still coached like I was a player. I wanted to have success. I wanted to see my guys have the success. I was pissed off when they didn't have success. But as I got older, I said, every one of these opportunities that they make a mistake is an opportunity for them to learn. And it's the best way for them to improve is when they make mistakes and they learn from them, as you said before, so you don't make the same mistake the next time. And so the older I've gotten and the longer I've coached, the more technical about things I always am in terms of what lessons can we learn from this, technically. Even when we lose a game, there's so much more to learn, and the players are so much more willing to learn it, when something bad happens. So you really can't waste a failing. You have to always be teaching, and that's how players get better.
Oh, and by the way, our crack research department has gone to work. The reason it's tough for you to remember games on your birthday, this will only be the second time in 25 years that you have coached a game on your birthday. 1998 with Michigan State, you beat Northwestern, I believe, 29-5 that day. The only other time you've coached a game on your birthday.
Well, it's so important, I don't even remember it.
Just a little piece of triviata should it come up later in the evening. Coach, do you ever get a chance, maybe you do, maybe you don't, to read any of the work after the season of a guy like Andy and fellas who analyze football? He says, no, you don't. Do you ever get a chance?
He has
maybe
so many better things to do, Eli.
in the summertime to pick up the sports papers and magazines and see what these guys write about?
I really don't. Not that has anything to do with Andy. I read a book. I always am reading a book.
Right.
So, and a lot of times the book is might be about football or sports or motivation or, sometimes it's just a good story about something that you kind of get into. But it's a way to get lost for a little bit, even if I only read 4 or 5 pages a day in 5 minutes or something. But most of the stuff that I read, it's something to try to help me be better at what I do.
Right.
So, and I just not really into opinions and speculations about things. And I like to read factual stuff, and I like to read stuff that people write that maybe is a different point of view that could be beneficial. And Andy probably does some of that, but
I read a lot of that too.
Yeah.
Sometimes people send me something and say, "Hey, you should read this," and I read it. But most of it has to do something about human behavior and how to motivate somebody or try to get somebody to do something better.
What are a couple of the books that you've read in the last few years that really stand out to you?
Obstacle is the Way. I've read 3 of Ryan Holiday's books. That's the first one. He spoke to the team probably 4 or 5 years ago. Toughness is one that Jay Billis's book. I'm reading a book now, Chicken Runs at Midnight.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was a great book.
And a true story, and probably worth reading. So it's really about a baseball player from Steubenville who comes up in the minor leagues and becomes a third base coach for Jim Leland and for the Pirates and then the Marlins. And I guess what it made it interesting for me, having worked for Wayne Huizinga for 2 years, that was his 97 Marlins team that won the World Series, which is what the saying, the chicken runs at midnight, that's what it's all about. You never know that until the end, but it's really kind of interesting, and it has a lot of compassion in it because of family and stuff like that. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I read that book. It was spectacular. Let me ask you about people. I've been blessed over the years I had a chance to sit down and talk with Eddie Robinson, the great coach at Grambling, and the same thing with John Wooden, the magnificent basketball coach at UCLA. And when we were done with these interviews, I walked out of those studios, and I said, "My goodness, what a blessing to sit with these guys, and how spectacular was that?" Have you ever had a chance? Is there a name or two that come to mind for you that you've met in your travels and your business, and when it was done, you said, "Man, that was pretty cool"?
Well, there's been quite a few, but I did read John Wooden's book way back when I first started coaching, and it did have a significant impact on some of the philosophical things about, just you're developing a person, you're not just developing a player. And if you develop a person the right way, they'll play better because they'll be a more complete player, a better competitor. But Wayne Huizenga was one of the premier people from a character standpoint that I've ever been associated with, in my life. The guy was a phenomenal in terms of what he accomplished in his life, building 3 Fortune 500 companies, but did it with total humility.
Yep.
I mean, total humility. You would never know the guy had 10 cents and started with one garbage truck and built Waste Management. And, the story always amazed me was he sold Pier 66, or one of his big properties in Fort Lauderdale, and his favorite restaurant was on right by the 17th Street Bridge. And he didn't want to sell the restaurant because he didn't want any people to lose their jobs. So he made a promise when he sold it that they wouldn't get rid of the restaurant or any of the people in it. 30 days later, the people came to him and said, "We got our pink slips today. They're going to tear our restaurant down." He went back and bought it back so nobody would lose their job.
Really?
I mean, amazing man.
You don't
Amazing.
see that, no.
Roman as a great defensive back safety, just smiling and nodding his head. You understand everything that the coach is saying.
Eli, you have no idea what coach is preaching here. It's so good because I was always taught if your eyes are right, your body will naturally do right because of it, right? You're good. Your eyes are going to take you to where your coverage needs to be. Your eyes are going to take you to where your back pedal or where you need the weave to be. It's just all these things kind of play hand in hand. So when coach is doing this talking, I'm seeing the same thing, and I'm just glad that he's able to say it in a nicer way than I sometimes feel when I'm on my couch watching it, because that's where my natural ability, and that's the first thing I see. And if you know what you're looking at from the safety perspective, you know every defense that's being called, because the safeties have everything to do with it, whether you're rocking and rolling them, where you're playing them in their zone coverage, where their eyes are going, and everything that coach is talking about. When you know a defense, the safety is so important, not only in the run and the pass when he's talking about tackling or in the pass game, but the safeties help everybody get lined up. They're a quarterback back there that has to relay the message to everybody from linebacker to all the corners. They just play such an important factor in it. And I know, especially in coach's defense, when he's had dynamic safeties, you feel it, they impact the game in so many different ways. And for me, this is the first time I've seen Alabama with younger, unproven guys. And I want to see how they continue to improve. And I'm just glad that they're able to make these corrections after wins and not losses, because that means you can build up confidence as well.
Right. Well, one of my big pet peeves with the safeties, and I say this all the time, which reinforces everything that you're saying, see a little, see a lot.
That's very true. Very true.
Because if you see a lot, you don't see anything.
No, you got to have your eyes on your keys, man.
That's right, on your keys.
Usually,
You got it.
Strong safety is that tight end, free safety is that left tackle. In the open side, you got to be able to do it and be slow. It's okay to be slow as a safety sometimes, but when you make that decision, you got to go fast. Be slow to think, be slow to make the decision, but when it goes, you got to go. So, and those are the things that I learned in the NFL, right? And that is how you're able to create longevity and build a career, because you don't make the same mistakes twice. As long as you don't make the same mistake over and over, coach always feels, oh man, well, we can work with this guy. He's not making those same mistakes, coach. He's growing, he's getting better. and you always are steadily improving. And if you can do that for 3 or 4 years in college, that's going to set yourself up, especially at a university like Alabama, where they know you're going to be coached well, you're going to be pushed hard, you're going to play against really good competition. That is what separates Alabama and these other SEC schools. If you can do that for 3 or 4 years and steadily show improvement, and that you still got room to grow, you really can build a long career for yourself.
Roman, what are you doing in the broadcast booth and not on the football field as a coach? You sound like you would do a heck of a job out on the gridiron still.
Hey, I don't want to come be coach's GA in the DB room, okay? I'm just going to stay away from over there. We would not get, no. That's his baby. I let him go, and it's good. It's all right. It's all right.
I hear you. Coach, a question from the Nick Saban Show blog on AL.com. Cole in Katy, Texas says, hey, Coach, howdy from the great state of Texas. I was curious which team or teams that we have played in the past might closely resemble the Mississippi State offense under Coach Mike Leach. Thanks, and roll tide.
Well, they're going to be 4 wideouts most of the game. So, maybe if you remember the old run and shoot kind of offense, since you're in Katy, Texas, that's in Houston, that Houston Oilers used to run. The patterns aren't exactly the same, but the concepts of having, 4 open, spread you out all over the field, sort of be able to try to see what you're in, and then have the best play called against that, like some of these highlights that I think some of the people are seeing from the LSU game. They played some man-to-man. They knew they were playing man-to-man, and man, they were chasing guys all over the field, based on that, and getting picked. So you got to kind of disguise what you're doing, and you can't let them dictate the tempo of the game. I think when you let people do that, you're always on your heels. You have to be aggressive, not necessarily in what you call, but I mean, you can be aggressive if you drop 8 guys in coverage and everybody breaks on the ball and does a great job of tackling and knock the ball off the receiver and don't let them catch it and run with it. So there's a lot of different ways that you can be aggressive. But I think when you let teams like this sort of dictate the tempo of the game, which is really what happened to us at Ole Miss. They were going fast. We got out of sorts, made a lot of mistakes, and they dictated the tempo of the game to our defense, and you just can't allow these kind of teams to do that. So, but they're going to spread us out. They got some really good concepts. The quarterback does a really good job of knowing what you're in, putting the ball in the right place. But we're going to have to do a great job of tackling. We're going to have good eye control and coverage. Everybody's going to have to execute and match the patterns like they need to, whether we're playing zone man-to-man, whatever it is. And we got to do a good job up front of pressuring the quarterback, pushing the pocket on him, batting balls down, making him feel the presence of the front people around him so it affects his throws.
You probably recognize that face who is on our big screen here directly in front of us, Peter Burns from ESPN, the SEC Network. He is our special media guest tonight.
Yeah, Peter, good to have you. How are you?
Coach, doing well. In fact, I needed, my wife said I had one homework assignment tonight for the show because, my daughter is about to turn 3 on Halloween and my son is about to turn 1 on Halloween. So she said, you have to ask Coach Saban tonight, how in the world do you get kids ready for Halloween birthdays and not think that every single birthday is going to be just candy and everybody dresses up for it?
Well, I don't know if I can answer that or not. I always had great birthdays. We always had my birthday party a little bit separate from actually Halloween, trick or treat, whatever it might be. I don't think my mom really knows whether she got tricked or treated though, 69 years ago. So she's still trying to figure that one out. Hopefully your wife knows better.
I hear you. Since we're talking family real quickly, how's the double granddaddy assignment going? Well?
It's great. We love it. Terry really likes being able to spend time. Little
Sure.
James is not very little. He's a really big guy for his age.
Really?
And he's very active. So it's been a lot of fun.
So a big guy, so he'll either be a sports broadcaster or a lineman, huh?
I think he's probably a right tackle the way he looks right now.
I hear you. Peter, jump on in.
Yeah, hey, guys, we were talking about this a lot coming up this week, and so much has been made about Coach Saban, you going up against Lane Kiffin and the record versus assistants, and how we've always talked about it is what, a coach teaches his assistants. But I've always kind of wondered on the other side, in your career going back to just starting as being a head coach, what assistant coach did you learn the most from growing up?
Interesting.
I'm thinking of assistant coaches because when you ask the question, the first thing that comes to mind is head coaches. I learned a lot from each and every head coach that I had the opportunity to work for, starting with Don James, who was a very successful college coach and was my coach, who taught me into being a coach, who I was a graduate assistant for and an assistant. But I learned a lot of lessons from him. I learned a lot of organizational things from him, a lot of the things that we still use today. I learned a lot about how to recruit from Frank Signetti, who was the head coach at West Virginia when I coached there for 2 years. I learned a lot from Bill Belichick when he was at the Cleveland Browns, a lot about organization, a lot about how to define things for people so that everybody in the organization has an exact expectation of what they can and can't do and what's expected of them. Learned a lot from George Perlis at Michigan State, mostly about recruiting, mostly about how to sort of manage people. He was really good personality and really managed people well. And, sometimes you learn things from people that you really don't ever want to do. I learned a lot of good things from Jerry Glanville, but I could go through and say the same thing about a lot of coaches and say, I learned something from them that I would say that is not something that I would want to do if I was a head coach. But assistant coaches, I think Gary Tranquil, who I was an assistant with like 3 times, Cleveland Browns, West Virginia, coached with him at the Naval Academy. We coached together 3 or 4 different occasions. He was probably the smartest. He was the only guy that I knew that could be the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator.
Wow.
He was brilliant, very intelligent, and really a good football guy. So he's probably, if I had to say an assistant that I learned the most from, he very well may be the guy.
If I may stay on this line of thinking, I did a radio show, a Zoom thing last night with Andrew Zhao, former quarterback, of course, at Bama, now the coach at Sylacauga High School, and I asked him about whether he got the same good feeling about doing something well as a player as he does now as a coach. And then I read an article yesterday about the great John Chavis. You might have seen the article, I don't know. Now that his collegiate coaching days are over, he is a defensive coach for a middle school, West Middle School in Knoxville, Tennessee. What is it about coaching that is so intoxicating to Andrew, to Chavis, to yourself, and all the other greats?
Well, coaching is teaching. Teaching is sort of ability to inspire learning, as well as the self-gratification you get from when you see people progress, develop, improve because of some of the things that maybe because of your previous experiences, you can actually benefit them with some of that knowledge and some of that experience. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the thing. The thing I've heard coaches say, this is the greatest profession in the world, except for playing the games. I don't think of it that way, but I have heard coaches say that it's so much fun to coach and practice and teach on the field and be in meetings with players and get them to do the right thing and inspire them to go to class and be a better person and all these things that you can do that makes coaching very self-fulfilling, self-rewarding, whatever, because you're just teaching. That's all you're doing.
But game day, you can have it, huh?
And then game day, there's so much anxiety about, are they going to get it right? Did you do enough? How well did you prepare them? So all the questions come. Now, I don't really feel that way but I'm saying I have heard coaches say that, and I've coached with guys that, they're French kissing the toilet before the game, man. They got bad problems. All right, so I've never been that way, but I enjoy the games. I enjoy the competition, and it's fun to see the players compete and make plays and play together as a group. I mean, there's just a lot of good things about being a part of a team that a lot of people don't even know about. The relationships that you have, the things that you do, how you influence people. I mean, those are things that when I can't do this anymore, there are going to be things that I really, really miss. Maybe not. I don't think I'll miss winning a game. I think I'll miss all those other things about being a part of the team.
Interesting. A great answer. Peter, jump on in again, my friend.
Yeah, when we look at that, and you say every single day, and like you enjoy obviously the games, and of course the fans. That's what we're all here for, and especially us here at ESPN SEC Network. We like televising them. What's the hardest day of the week for you personally as a head coach? Is it Monday or Sunday looking at film, or is it Thursday when you're still not quite there to game time? What is that day?
Well, I think each day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, are all days that are very challenging. So to say one is more challenging than the other is probably not fair, because the way we do things, and you've probably heard me talk about this before, is there's certain things we're going to do on each day of the week. All those things require research, planning, decision-making from some part of your staff. Mm-hmm. The day that is most difficult for me has always been Sunday, because you grade the game that you just played, you go over it with the staff, things that you could have done better, things that you weren't prepared for, what would we do different when we play this team again? What do we have to do to improve? So all these things you go over, and then you start on the next opponent. And that's pretty tedious, because I'll sit in a room by myself on Sunday for maybe 3 hours to grade our film, then have staff meetings for probably about 3 hours with the coaches. And then I'll sit by myself again for another 4 or 5 hours and watch the next team that we play. And that's just watching their offense, because I watch their offense first, help the defense plan. Then on Monday morning, I watch special teams, and then we have a special teams meeting. We put the special teams plan in. Then I have a press conference at noon. I usually write notes for the defensive players, coaching tips, whatever. So then we go out and practice on Monday. We put the base game plan in on offense, defense, and all of special teams. But we don't practice very long, so it's mostly special teams. Then Monday night, we're complete planning for first down, second down, goal line, and short yardage. So that's what we're going to practice on Tuesday. So I do that with the defense. I study the offense, which is watching the other team's defense, meet with the offense, do that. And we watch practice film, that night, Tuesday's practice. And then Tuesday night, we do red area and third down. So then I do that with both sides. So there's still a lot of decisions being made. Then we practice what we did the day before, plus red area and third down. So to say one day of the week, I think I don't like Sunday because it's lonely.
Yeah.
Because I probably spent 8 hours by myself.
I hear you. Wow. And of course, he loves Thursday because he gets together with all of us. That goes.
Yeah, so you see why I'm looking forward to coming to this place on Thursday after what I just explained.
There you go. we were just talking with Jamie about the college game versus the pro game and how she gets to talk with young kids and tell stories and so much. You've experienced both. They're both football, but boy, they're different, aren't they?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest things that I love about college football is you have such a good opportunity to sort of impact, direct, get guys to make better choices and decisions that'll actually impact the quality of their life down the road.
Right.
And I love coaching pro football. But it's really about football. And I've always sort of said, in college you have a spirit of development. You have a spirit around because people love their school and they love their team, and gives the players something special to play for from an internal spirited standpoint. And the NFL is really a business, and that's what everybody that's playing is in business for themselves, and it's just a little different kind of motivation.
You're in the middle of facing all your former assistants in the month of October. Who is most like you personality-wise out of this group of guys, and who was most opposite your personality, let's say, in terms of being in a meeting room?
Well, I think that each one of the guys have a personality of their own, and certainly have a way that they want to do things, that they probably learned some things here that maybe changed their philosophy a little bit or made them a little more organized or something. But each one of those guys had one thing in common. They were all very good leaders. Players responded to them. I think they all had a presence. And if you look at every one of those guys, whatever they were responsible for here while they were here, that group did very, very well because they had leadership. The players responded to them. The players trusted them. And I think from a personality standpoint, I really can't compare anybody to me.
But Lane seems like he can really get under some skin sometimes. That seems like a personality trait of his.
But I like Lane. I like Lane. He's very bright. He's smart. He did a really good job here. And I actually made the statement once that after being a head coach, Lane probably would be a much better head coach. In fact, I told the people at Florida, Atlantic, where he went, that he would be a much better coach than even he was an assistant, and he was a very good assistant. So, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for all those guys. I like all those guys. Some of those guys, Miss Terry's there when her kids were born, way back when. So it's really hard to. You have a tremendous amount of respect for someone. You have to compete against them. They're good competitors. You want to compete against them. But the one thing that I never do is I never take it personal. Bill Belichick was in our division. We're good friends. We played 2 times a year when I was in Miami. But it never affected our friendship and our relationship. And I'm sure he wanted to beat us, and we wanted to beat them as bad as anybody. But when the game's over, it's not personal. Everybody's doing their best to get their team ready to play the best, and you have to have a lot of respect for that. So I do think all these guys are doing a really good job in developing the programs that they're in, and they're very competitive, and won't be any different this week.
Coach, being from Minnesota, people are finally starting to talk about college football up that way because the Big Ten is coming back this week. And I was curious about how you usually go about your business in terms of keeping an eye on the rest of the football landscape throughout the season. If you've noticed the absence of the Big Ten, if you're looking forward to having that back as part of the conversation, and just what that looks like now with that part of football coming back.
Well, I think my big thing is, from a player's perspective, I'm just happy that the players are going to have an opportunity to be able to compete. I wish every league would come back and give their players the opportunity to compete. And it just happens to be the timing of the Big Ten coming back right now. But, in the season, I don't see many games other than our games and the people that we play. Sometimes if we have a day game at home and you get home and you see a little bit of game on Saturday night, never see any NFL games on, Sunday or Monday night. So other than the football that we watch Monday for 14 hours a day and Tuesday for 14 hours a day, and usually for about 12 hours a day on all the rest of the days, we don't get to see much. And I can't say that I miss it.
I hear you. I hear you.
Well, I think this is a real challenge for our team in terms of what is our DNA. You know, do we have the ability to sustain the kind of competitive spirit, physical toughness, relentless sort of way that we played, you know, in the game last week? And I think it's really important that we can continue, you know, to be able to play that way. I think that's got to be the trademark of the team. That's got to be sort of our DNA, that humility keeps you hungry. I said that after the game in the press conference. I said that after the game to the players. And I think, you know, that's very, very important to being able to stay hungry, to be the best you can be, know what it takes to go out there and prepare and do it week in and week out. One game doesn't make a season. So consistency and performance is the most important thing we need to get out of this game and this team, and see if we're capable of doing that. So it'll be interesting to see how we respond.
Well, listen, you travel safely. We'll see you up in Knoxville tomorrow, and glad you're back with us here and that all is well.
Well, I'm glad to be here, so I appreciate all the support. I really do appreciate, and I've said this several times, how many people texted, called, sent cards, wishing us good health and all this kind of stuff when, you know, we got the bad news last Wednesday. So I can't tell you how heartfelt that makes us and how much we appreciate it. And certainly, you know, the Alabama nation and a lot of friends and from all over the country were very, very supportive of the circumstance that we were in. And fortunately, we have a lot of gratitude that it worked out in a positive way for us.
Or, as the case may be, a negative way.
Well,
either way, we'll take it.
Yeah, I guess.
It was good to see you on the sidelines. Either way you want to phrase it, but
Jamie, I appreciate you doing this. And I know you're far, far away, but I guess we'll see you again soon.
Coach, you can't shake me just yet. You'll have us on the schedule a couple more times.
Well, good. We're glad to have you. Thank you.